visszamegyünk. Yes.
So, dear colleagues, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you on behalf of the Russian International Affairs Council at our meeting that we have organized together with the Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs from Nepal. And I'm glad to say that I think it is our first roundtable and event devoted to Nepal and Russia-Nepal relations and Russia's and Nepal positions in the South Asia. And I hope it will pave the way for you in additional discussions on these topics. And today we have on board several distinguished speakers. Unfortunately, we have a slight change in the number of participants, but I think that the discussion will still be very interesting and thought-provoking. So together we have with us our Russian International Affairs Council Director of Programs, Dr. Ivan Timoфеев, former ambassador of Russia to Nepal, Sergei Величкин, and professor of MGIMO University and Higher School of Economics, Sergei Lунев from the Russian side. And from the Nepal side, we have Ambassador Lal Shrestha, former ambassador of Nepal to Russia, and Dr. K.S, research and development director of the Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs. And I would kindly ask all our distinguished speakers to keep themselves muted once they are not speaking, so we don't provoke any technical glitches for the live stream. And I'm happy to welcome all our audience that are following us live. And I remind you that if you have any questions or issues, you could ask them in the YouTube or Facebook chat, and my colleagues will transfer them to me. And I hope that at the end, after the main intervention, we'll have a bit of time for an open discussion. So please feel free to ask your questions. And I'm happy to give floor to Dr. Ivan Timoфеев to deliver his remarks first.
Thank you very much, Ksenia. Dear colleagues, good morning. It's a great pleasure to welcome all of you at our joint event. Indeed, I would confirm what Ksenia said, that this is our first event, joint seminar with colleagues from Nepal. And I think it's a matter of high importance to discuss mutual visions on the regional situation in South Asia affected by COVID-19 now, and also to look at the broader context of international relations in the region, not to speak about bilateral relations, of course. I must say a couple of introductory words that COVID-19, of course, affected all of the sides of our life all over the world, and it turned to be a game changer. We got used to the situations when global challenges, global black swans like COVID-19 usually affect in a more severe way the developing countries. But this time the situation is different. The developed countries suffered most. Among them are the United States, countries of European Union, and they're still suffering. The United States is among the leaders which are suffering from the COVID-19 in terms of numbers. But this doesn't mean that the other sides, the other parts of the world stay safe. COVID-19 has not yet finished. World Health Organization warns us that the second wave of the disease is very probable, and one of the forecasts is that the main hit of the second wave may occur in Asia, in Africa, and in other parts of the world which were much less affected by the first wave. And South Asia region is one of the most vulnerable vulnerable places in this regard. So it's very important for us on the bilateral level to exchange best practices on how to counteract the consequences of COVID-19, and also to understand what should we expect afterwards. The key thing is how would the economies, the national economies and the global economy in general be restored after the pandemics. Well, at best, we will have a V scenario when there is a slump after the pandemics and during the pandemics, and then the growth when it is over. The worst scenario, if we have an L scenario when after the pandemics there would be a stagnation due to the loss of consumption and production chains. And indeed, this is a huge challenge for both of our countries and for every country in the world, actually. Though this challenge has, of course, different substance for us. Another point, another important thing we should discuss, in my view, is the global context of the international relations in South Asia. What I mean, first of all, is increasing competition between, if not to say rivalry, it's not a competition, it's rivalry, if not a confrontation between United States and China. This year, this confrontation became more salient, and COVID-19 accelerated this confrontation. We see a drastic change in the US strategic documents towards China. And of course, South Asia would be involved in one way or another in this increasing competition. United States are making a stake on India as a potential ally in containing China. And of course, China on its side would make an attempt to ally in one way or another with other regional players. So we live in an interesting time, in quite a turbulent period. The COVID-19, of course, increased the uncertainties we have now in regional affairs and in global affairs. I do hope that these uncertainties would not lead to extreme scenarios, to the drastic deficit of resources, to more aggravated humanitarian problems, and not to speak about more extensive confrontation between regional and global players. So these were my introductory remarks, and I would be glad to hear the reflections from the Russian experts who deeply understand the international affairs in South Asia, and of course the remarks and statements of our colleagues from Nepal. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Timoфеев, for giving such a broad framework for our discussion. I'd say that we have a number of issues that we would try to cover during our discussion. First block of issues deals, I think, with Russia-Nepal relation, what they have been and whether they have been changed by the pandemic and new global challenges. The second block of issues deal with Russia's and Nepal's position in international dynamics in South Asia. Of course, the situation is quite different because Nepal is part of South Asia, and Russia is striving to be a big player in South Asia, but by many actors leaders, both in region and outside the region, it is sometimes seen with some kind of skepticism in its activities in the region. And of course, we can say that it has big partnership with big regional players, for example, India. And of course, we see that its relations with some smaller states, including Nepal, may be underdeveloped. And I think it could be a task for us to look at how these ties could be improved and this partnership could be broadened. And then, of course, we have the probably the broadest and the largest number of issues that we could discuss. These are new challenges brought about both by COVID-19 pandemic and other international trends that existed before that, but have been exacerbated by the pandemic. And those are, I think, the challenges that Dr. Timofeyev has described. First of all, this is the pandemic itself and the global recession. Then we have the technological shift that occurs all over the world. And of course, this is the changes in the strategic dynamics and the growing rivalry between China and the US. And that I think most of the states in the world find themselves increasingly put into this fight in some or another way. And with this brief introduction, I'm happy to give floor to our next speaker, Ambassador Shrestha from Nepal. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Good morning to Russian friends and good afternoon to South Asian friends. This issue, post-COVID-19 pandemic, the relationship between South Asians and the relations with Russia, in difficult days also, in these difficult days also, they have better understanding, cooperation, particularly in South Asia. Russian helicopters are very useful for taking relief operation and supplies in remote areas. So in almost all South Asian countries, the Russian helicopter is a reliable transport means to carry on teams for treatment and the supply of related medicines and equipment. That is one aspect. And SAARC also revitalized to deliver and support each other in these troubled days to address the COVID-19 pandemic. So there was video conference between SAARC countries. So SAARC, after a long interval of stand still position, it is reactivized to cope up the COVID-19 pandemic. WHO also helping and coordinating in these efforts, but USA is not cooperating, even withdrawn help from WHO. That is very sorry state, but other countries helping each other, particularly China and Russia is very active in South Asia countries to deliver equipments and medicines. So we felt most need of mutual cooperation. This COVID-19 pandemic is a global phenomena, and there should be global cooperation and understanding and more active regional cooperation, and each country should take their responsibility to cope with these problems to the common citizens. So international and regional cooperation is needed more effectively to cope with this COVID-19 pandemic. The countries in this South Asia is trying their best, and Russia, we are hearing that Russia is trying to develop vaccine. A vaccine is the last solution. So we are eagerly waiting for success of its experiment, which is going on there in Russian academic institutions. So there is a ray of hope that we can overcome after this vaccination successful test. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your short intervention highlighting the situation with the COVID-19 fight in terms of regional cooperation in South Asia. And now I'm happy to give floor to our next speaker, Ambassador Velичkin. Please, Sergey Vasilievich, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ksenia, and I would like to first of all express my utmost gratitude to the organizers for having provided us with this wonderful, unique opportunity to interact. Well, I'm quite delighted to see again Ambassador Hиранья Лал, with whom we interacted in the past on many occasions. Of course, personally, which was also much more pleasurable. But well, that is the reality of the changing world. We have been imposed by COVID to share such virtual platforms, and this is probably the reality for some to persist for some longer time to come. I would like to also start, since we are discussing COVID now, with great and sincere thanks to the Nepalese side, to the Nepalese state and government, for having extended the Russian side extremely needed assistance when it was needed. At the time we had our citizens in Kathmandu in dire stress, in need of evacuation, and on the 20th of April it was possible, it became possible despite extreme pressure of circumstances and many difficulties of logistical kind, mostly, in a decisive degree, it was because of cooperation of the Nepalese side. Thank you very much for that. We will remember it here in Russia. Of course, one would also like to express sympathies to the Nepalese people who have been affected by this very alien and absolutely unpredictable and sudden thing which has visited Nepal maybe a little bit later than other countries, but still the presence is there. Well, we know official statistics, they are somewhat, well, should I say modest, if this is the right word, but still 17,000 people who have been officially, according to official statistics, affected in Nepal, far away from the world recognized centers of pandemics. Well, this is saying something, you know, about the reach of this disaster. Besides, we all understand, of course, that these statistics are also the result of, they reflect the extent to which it was possible to use tests and to find out the reality, which probably I don't think I'll make a dire mistake if I presume so, much more sinister. Well, when we try to analyze the impact of COVID pandemics on a country like Nepal, some things are quite obvious. They are already there. For example, what we see now in the migrant diaspora, in that numerous community of Nepalese who are subjected to all kinds of deprivation in the countries where they reside as migrant workers. Especially we know about these stories in the Middle East, and we know about even more dramatic side of it, which is connected with the return of migrants. We may say, I don't know, maybe Ambassador, you will clarify this point, or Dr. Shyamji, but it seems that mostly the pandemics, as far as Nepal is concerned, is the result of these migrants returning back, mostly from India. And well, this is one point. Another point, which is equally obvious, is the loss in terms of tourism, which was a growing industry and proving to be quite indispensable for building up Nepal, which we all would like to emerge. Modernized country with developing contacts and bringing more and more investment from outside and providing good stimulus for local national investments. This loss is also obvious, but generally speaking, we don't know yet, at least it is not visible from here, what the real impact is on the general state of industry, trade and investment in Nepal. Because the restrictions, the lockdown, all these things which are differently described, but boil down to one single reality of the economy being severely affected. Well, one can only imagine, knowing the realities of previous disasters. I'm sorry to bring up the memory of great earthquake, but as a person who was in Nepal at the time, I can only testify to the fact that the impact was quite severe. It was disastrous, and the country seemed to be destined for years to struggle with it. Now that the country was just, and then too, well, it's controversial to what extent, was just beginning to recover. This thing, well, not so obviously now, but is starting to obviously affect the state of the prospects of investment and trade. And well, I think that these are the things which we should start with when we review the present situation. As far as the political side of it is concerned, well, there is unfortunately no geopolitical holidays. It is impossible. All the truths, some of which are rather controversial and sad, or saddening truths of geopolitical controversies and rivalry, mostly of other international actors affecting Nepal, are still there. They are not going to disappear, by no means. And most of the things we know about the international dynamics at present, they indicate that such rivalries may be exacerbated. It has been already mentioned by Dr. Timofeyev. I think we'll come to more detail when we come to that. And this special, very special way in which COVID demonstrates its presence in the Asian countries, and not only. Let's look at Brazil and some other countries in Latin America, and there hasn't been yet the last word pronounced from the Black continent, from Africa. Well, it also suggests that there might be some diversions of geopolitical projections of rivalries and controversies, which might change the overall dynamics and its impact in closer home to Nepal. So this is how the general situation suggests itself in my eyes. That's what I would like to start with.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Velичkin, for highlighting the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the global situation and also on the situation in Nepal. And I think it's very important to take that into account when we try to identify the challenges and opportunities for Russia-Nepal cooperation, both bilateral and within South Asia. And I'm happy to give forward to our next speaker, Dr. K.C. from AIDIA Research and Development Director.
Thank you very much. Just a quick correction, I'm still to be a doctor, so please call me Mr. And thank you. Firstly, as being a part of AIDIA, one of the hosts of this discussion, please kindly allow me to take this opportunity to express sincere appreciations for all the esteemed speakers for your valuable participation and interventions. And also I'd like to thank Russian International Affairs Council and the members for this great partnership. And secondly, it's my truly distinct honor to share this platform of virtual discussion with such a distinguished panel of experts. And now I'll try to share some of my understanding of the subject of today's discussion. We know that humankind is facing one of the greatest public health crises in the generation as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. We already knew that around 600,000 lives have been lost worldwide. And besides this, it has also already impacted severely in the global socio-economic outlook with the wide-ranging repercussions. Though we have some encouraging results in the development process of COVID-19 vaccine, including some recent news from Russia, like Hiranья just stated, and also gradually lifting the restriction measures. But we know that Ivan sir was talking, there is a potential second wave of virus. So I think the coordinated regional and global strategy for dealing with this virus is absolutely necessary. In this backdrop, I'd like to highlight a couple of points. I think where South Asia and Russia should work closely under this pandemic. The first and foremost is I think setting the respective response strategy to battle against the virus yourself, or the relative success and failures of country-specific strategy in dealing with the COVID-19. As I stated earlier, though we have some positive results from the initial trial of the COVID-19 vaccine, but until now, and I think maybe for 2021, we have to deal with the pandemic only with these existing preventive measures. So in this context, I think exchanges of experiences can be vital for each other, especially in the context of a second wave. For instance, if we look at the South Asian countries, Sri Lanka has doing better, mainly because of early lockdowns and a comparatively high level of coronavirus testing and effective public health surveillance system, which is also oftentimes cited as the good health outcomes as at the low cost. So if we look at the Indian scenario, I think it's not doing comparatively good in responding to the pandemic. But if we take the example of some of the state of India, like Kerala, then I think it has responding very effectively with this prompt response on, timely response, and also because of the experiences of managing disaster and disease in the past, something like a Nipah outbreak in 2018. So I think the experience sharing is also the very crucial area that we need to take into account. This second thing I'd like to highlight is like sharing the approaches of easing the lockdowns and economic reopening is also crucial. Like WHO has stated that slow reopening of economy can be the pragmatic strategy to adopt in this moment. We know that like COVID-19 has been causing the international trade with disruptions in the global supply chain. We know that tourism and travel industry have been relentlessly impacted due to global travel restrictions. Countries may have in this point of time like different approaches for dealing with it. I think by like immediate and long-term policy measures to mitigate the economic fallout. But at the meantime, being a part of this globalized economic system, we also need to have like global response. Maybe like country A is doing better than B, but at the end, A will also suffer because like because of the like indirect repercussions from the disrupted global supply chain. So I think third and another important area that South Asia and then Russia can cooperate is research and innovations sector. I would say like there should be a very fresh impetus from for intensifying ongoing research project that many South Asian countries and Russia shares together, and also discover the new field of cooperation as well. Like this pandemic has also taught us the lessons or compel us to realize the significance of digital economy, digital governance, and so on and so forth. So I think we need to give a kind of fresh stimulus to it, where like South Asian countries and Russia can work together. And I must say that Russia has very technically far ahead than many South Asian countries. But at the meantime, like while we're talking about the Russia and South Asia, I think mostly it is like dominated by the Russia-India and Russia-Pakistan relations, and to some extent Russia-Afghanistan relations. We must have to like acknowledge that. Besides like strategic partnership between India and Russia, both countries have been also like sharing the different kind of platforms like BRICS, G20, SU, and RIAC, Russia, India, China, like a consolidation mechanism, and so on and so forth. So I think one of the more participatory existing regional architecture that we have while talking about South Asia and Russia relations, then it is, in my point of view, the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. Definitely, like besides global institutions like UN and WHO, in like SU, we know that India and Pakistan are like before 2 or 3 years back, they became the full member state of these organizations, and Afghanistan is sharing the platform as the observer state, and Nepal and Sri Lanka is as a direct partner. So I think these cooperations can be also strengthened through this regional architecture. While like underlying some of the specific areas cooperations between Nepal and Russia, I think we need to have work very closely in order to promote trade, tourism, and then enhancing energy cooperations, among others. Technological exchanges, and then I mean like implementing the joint research and innovations should be the priority. We have been hearing that some of the institutions are from Russia and Nepal are already cooperating in this front, and that is quite good, I would say. For instance, like that Russian technology and then expertise linked with the hydropower development is very renowned, and the cooperations in this field could be very paramount importance in order to like develop the potential hydropower in the Nepal and build the cooperations in the sector. While like talking about that, I think we do have some sort of like Nepal-Russia joint working group on energy cooperation in the past. which is not, in my point of view, like working very, very actively. Maybe like it is the good time to revitalize that kind of mechanism in order to boost our trade. And another area of cooperations could be, I would say that agricultural cooperations. I think that Russia, in the past, it was doing very good in the agricultural sector, but as per my knowledge, it is really like revitalizing this agricultural sector with the innovation and technology. So I think as Nepal is also dependent upon the agricultural sector in many ways, so this is the area that can be further of great significance. And another area could be like education cooperation. We know that can explain more about this, that in the past, like there are so many Nepalese who are going to have their higher education in Russia, and but the flow is, I guess, comparatively low now. Education cooperation is a very great part of public diplomacy as well, in order to understand the culture and then context of each other. So I think we need to also have work or enhance some kind of cooperations in this field as well. And I think like talking about global, we can also like apply this for our relations. Some of the area that one could be like for what like many experts are like articulating the risks of vaccine, so-called vaccine nationalism, because like we know that there are some news coming from around the world, but after the development of the vaccine, then how we are going to provide like manage to the like whole world is also like another great area of concerns that we need to think. Many like scholars are pointing out that vaccine nationalism can take over the vaccine multilateralism. So another area is like we know that global power is dispersed widely among the countries, unlike one or two power dominating in the global order in the past. So increasing geopolitical and geoeconomic push and pull is there in the global power structure, and as well as the in South Asia as well. So we know that there is still India and Russia has strategic partnership. Recently, Russian defense minister visited Moscow in this a lot of time. They do have Russia and India to have like some agreement of purchasing S-400 missile defense system. So I think one of the, while we're talking about South Asia and then Russia, then as Hiranes highlighted earlier, defense cooperation is also one of the major part that we need to take into account. But definitely with this like uncertainty, with this and COVID pandemic, already like we are seeing kind of economic nationalism and somehow kind of deglobalizations. But with this COVID-19 pandemic, there is more uncertainty in the global supply chain than how like factories, like industries are going to operate in the future is a great concern. So there is uncertainty. I mean, like in the context of like reconfigurations of the balance of power. So there is like a new interest coming up that we need to match. We need to also take account of these changing dynamics of our relations and strengthen our cooperations for mutually beneficial relations. So I think I'll stop here. Then if there is any question, I'll try to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very detailed and broad intervention, Mr. K.C. You've described, I think, not only the regional dynamics, but also, which is, I think, very important, highlighted possible areas for Russian-Nepal collaboration, namely the technologies sector, agriculture, energy, education, and also health and distribution of vaccines. Thank you so much for your intervention. Before I give floor to the next speaker, I'd like to remind our audience that follows us live that they could ask questions in YouTube or Facebook chat, and then I'll pass them on to our speakers. And now I'm happy to give floor to Professor Sergei Lунев from МГИМО University and High School of Economics. Please, Sergei Ivanovich, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, dear friends. and colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving the opportunity to speak to such an enlightened audience. I don't want to speak about COVID-19. I am not a great specialist in it. And of course, the pandemic is not over. And the results are very dim. Because now the crisis came to the developing countries from the developed ones. And the results, it's impossible to foresee, in my opinion. Some experts like to speak about the end of globalization. I am not so sure about it. If we recall the world economic crisis a dozen years ago, there were also voices about the end of globalization. But nothing has happened in spite of the growth of nationalism and jingoism. It was also during this world economic crisis. And there are different categories of globalization. For example, it's possible to speak about informational civilization, due to which we are able to hold this webinar. And really, we see real globalization in this field. There is economic globalization, there is political globalization, that is not so evident, and civilization globalization. There is no globalization in the process of culture, civilizational things. If you permit me, I am a researcher. I would like to concentrate on the context of Russian policy in South Asia and to speak mainly about South Asia, because I hope it is the first webinar on this situation, and it is absolutely necessary to see the context of the whole things. The geostrategic position of the region is very peculiar. India is in the center, and other states are located on the edges of the subcontinent. Geopolitical realities play a huge role for the system of interstate relations in the region. South Asia is characterized by a complete asymmetry. India has superiority in different spheres, 74% of the territory, 83% of the gross national product, and this dominance has a serious impact upon the whole system of international relations in the region. South Asian countries have a number of common cultural and civilizational values. There is the psychological factor. In the past, the countries of South Asia were colonies or semi-colonies of Great Britain. The common history and unity of tasks, which stems from historical development and the unequal position in the international division of labor, certainly cement their ties. However, centrifugal factors are also active in South Asia. India's dominance in the region causes its neighbors to distrust the republic and creates a sense of their own helplessness. This leads to their desire for other great powers to become more active in the region, acting on their side, and trying to involve the world community in resolving disputed bilateral issues. For India, all this is unacceptable. The country has always sought to strengthen its position in the region, to resist the attempts of great powers, especially global ones, to be independent actors in the regional system, and to act as intermediaries. It is worth noting such problems of relations in South Asia as religious heterogeneity, In 3 countries, the Muslim population is predominant, in 2 Hindu and in 2 Buddhist, with the presence of religious minorities and the growth of fundamentalism in almost all countries. It's necessary to note the psychological perception of India as a center from which peripheral areas were ruled in the past. A number of different national values, traditional and modern, different political systems, economic strategies, and levels of socio-economic development. All of this has found concrete expression in the complications of India's bilateral relations with its neighbors. Territorial and border issues, religious, ethnic, and immigration issues, water resource allocation, militarization, nuclear problems. South Asia is gradually rising in the system of China's foreign policy priorities. Maybe I'm wrong, but it is primarily due to the growing influence of India in the world. In the future, unfortunately, both powers will consider each other as strategic rivals, despite the fact that in the near future they are ready to cooperate in a number of areas, including global ones. Pakistan, aware of its weakness in relation to India, has always sought to use an external factor to counter the Asian giant. Islamabad places special holds on Beijing and is one of the most reliable partners of China in Asia. Of particular concern in India was and is the military political ties between Pakistan and China in the field, especially in the field of nuclear weapons. But since 1994, Beijing has stopped providing open support to Islamabad on the Kashmir issues, but Delhi still regards China as an ally of Pakistan. The Indian government and experts believe in the idea of China's alleged string of pearls strategy, according to which Beijing seeks to create military bases in the Indian Ocean region, in Pakistan, as well as Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. However, there is no real facts to accept this concept. Even in Pakistan, China didn't establish a naval base in Gwadar, where it built a port. Only in 2017, Beijing has opened its first real foreign military base in Djibouti, but it only serves as logistics support for the Chinese Navy. On the whole, the South Asian states regard China as a counterweight to India's hegemony in the region and consider China as an extremely important economic partner. For more than 70 years, India has viewed Nepal, let's speak about Nepal now, as a weak link in ensuring the security of the Himalayan region, which determines its special strategic interest. Through Nepal, China is able to enter Indian territory and to cut the northeast from the rest of the country. Theoretically, Delhi can gain access to Tibet, which will not bring any military benefits. In my opinion, main foreign policy of Nepal for more than 2 centuries is to preserve national unity and identity. That's why, after the royal coup of 1960, Kathmandu has begun to actively develop ties with China in order to reduce its dependence on India. However, all the time, Nepal is dependent on the constant ups and downs in Indian-Chinese relations, that plays a negative role for Nepal. If we speak about the current situation, the significance of Nepal for India's foreign policy was underlined by the fact that Narendra Modi made his third visit to the Himalayan country after coming to power. And before this visit, Prime Ministers of India didn't go to Nepal during 17 years. And the most important results of Narendra Modi's trip was the economic agreements. And China is also much more active in Nepal in the economic field. In 2013 already, China came out on top in the list of foreign investors. And Beijing reacted to the activation of India after Modi's visit and starts to offer Nepal new projects related to the implementation of the Chinese initiative to build a new Silk Road. Delhi's dissatisfaction with both the development of Sino-Nepalese relations and the discrimination in its view of the Terai population under the constitution caused the Indian government to impose restrictions on the transit of goods to Nepal. That significantly complicated the economic situation in your wonderful country. But now China gives a hope to Nepal to end in the future the economic dependence on India. So in short, I try to describe the contours of the situation in the region. If we speak about my country, it's necessary to say that I'm a freelancer, so I can critique my own country as well. In my opinion, my country has had active foreign policy in Nepal and in other middle countries of South Asia only during dozen years after the mid-50s and 1971. After the third Indo-Pakistan War, the Soviet Union began to look at other countries of South Asia almost exclusively through the prism of Indian interests. And in fact, cooperation with other countries except Pakistan has ceased. If we speak about the prospects of Russian policy in South Asia and in Nepal concretely, in my opinion, it's necessary to say that India will remain Russia's top priority state in South Asia for a long time to come. But there is one very important factor. Russia initiated the RIAC triangle, Russia, India, China, that provides the basis for the BRICS. The three countries obviously share the unacceptability of establishing a unipolar world, and fundamental factor of the triangle is also the opposition to growing Islamic extremism and radicalism. Unfortunately, the triangle is almost inactive in the Asia Pacific. And bearing in mind that Asian giants are extremely cautious about any attempts to meddle in bilateral disputes, the Russian Federation can only facilitate certain increased influence of factors positive for Indian-Chinese affairs and weakening the negative parameters. And in my opinion, Nepal gives such an atonement. The economic cooperation in continental Asia with China and India is extremely important for Russia. It is possible to think about the creation of Indo-Russian-Chinese joint ventures in such fields as heat and power engineering and hydropower engineering, the construction of highways and railways, and especially tourist sphere. It was mentioned already, including the construction and modernization of airports. And His Excellency Shrestha has said about Russian helicopters. So it's necessary to elaborate some problems. Maybe they think can be considered to be rather fantastic, but in my opinion, it has certain potential. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lunev, for your broad perspective on the regional dynamics involving both India, China, and Russia, and the overall situation in the region. I think now that we have heard all the main intervention of the speakers, we could proceed with the discussion. And first of all, I'd like to ask a question to all of our participants. Some of them have already touched upon this topic, but I'd ask you to speak about the specific opportunities for Russia-Nepal cooperation that you could see, both that existed before the COVID-19 pandemic and have been changed or challenged, and also those that have sprung up or have been created because of the pandemic. So please first to Ambassador Shrestha.
Almost all panelists understand Nepal better and very sympathetic to our delicate geopolitical situation. Very constructive commentaries I heard. So first of all, I would like to thanks and appreciate panelist presentation. China, Russia, India, they are trying through BRICS and other forums, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, to develop multilateral development, multipolar world, instead of US unilateral hegemonistic regime they are trying to change. And China also developing roads, highways, and railways in Himalayan region. We are member of Belt and Road Initiative. So in Raswagadi, China's train will arrive after 1 or 2 years. So the Raswagadi, that will be the gateway of China to South Asia, and Russia also can use that gateway to reach by land route to South Asia. So it will open new avenues to reach by shortest route by Russia to South Asia via this Tibet Nepal highway. So this will open new prospects. I suggest that Russia should take interest to develop and come through that route instead of going through Black Sea or other distance routes. We can have now short land route under Belt and Road Initiative project that Raswagadi Railway between Russia and through Russia, China, and then Nepal. And another position of Russia is that it is a common friend of India and China. Nepal is in between these two, Chinese and India. So Russia being a reliable friend of both India and China, in certain sectors, sensitive sectors, Russia can invest in Nepal in hydro sector, in east-west railway sectors, and other infrastructure development. Also, so it is right time to take initiative and be very active in Nepal. Both our big neighbors will be happy to see Russia instead of Western hegemony game. So Russia's presence in Nepal, its reactivized cooperation will be very helpful to address new geopolitical developments in this region. But particularly the multilateral world development, the new trend of globalization, there should be a more active, positive role by Russia in South Asia. That will be appreciated by all South Asian countries and China also. So to develop new world order, free from Western hegemonism and based upon collective self-reliance of the region. Russia is basically Euro-Asian power, so it should be more active in Asian area, including India, Nepal, and China. That's is my emphasis. And second point is that Russians, those who were in Nepal during COVID, they were safely taken back by a special plane. And Russia mountaineers and trekkers, they are very fond of visiting Nepal by and again. They are the oldest and continued visitors of Nepal. So they are developing this helicopter tour projects and different paragliding and other projects. Russians are there. So tourism is this reliable sector where Russians can invest. And we have uranium deposit in Mustang area large. So we can use and process it and have a power generation. And big power will compete. Russia will be acceptable to both our Russia, two neighbors, China and India. So this uranium big projects, Russia can be involved in Nepal. So there are other new prospects also, but I suggest that take active role, because we have railway link with India and China. So don't think that Nepal is a small market. Yeah, it in markets. Investment in Nepal means easy accessibility with these two world's largest markets. To implement BRIC speed in Asia. So let Russia take most active role and use Rasuagadi rail link on the BRI as the gateway, shortest gateway to Russia's to reach in South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And now, Ambassador Velичкин, would like to hear your perspective on the opportunities for Russia and Nepal collaboration.
Thank you very much, Ksenia. Well, I have followed the logic of my colleagues. Well, it seems that a lot which has been mentioned actually was the result of all those discussions and fortunately some contacts which we have had in our relations, let us say, over the last 10 years or so. I was part of this dialogue when it revived, let us say, after certain understandable glitches connected with well-known internal domestic events in Nepal. Well, it seemed that we are gradually moving to probably start discussing and then gradually come over to implementation of some of the projects in the priority areas which suggest themselves, some of them mentioned by our Nepalese colleagues. Unfortunately, the situation even then was bringing us to a conclusion which seems to me now the overall and probably absolutely categorical conclusion of any analysis of COVID implications for trade and investment. I don't think that we are now anywhere in the world on the eve of some big state supported investment programs, let us say outside immediate neighborhood of biggest actors in the world investment market. Well, as far as the situation in Russia is concerned, we are now amidst a great national debate guided by the president of the nation on how we should, let us say, utilize our internal resources to come out of the situation where we find ourselves as a result of the pandemics. And it seems that there are going to be huge investment programs internally, domestically. And the debate is where should we find those resources, and how indeed we should prioritize the visible challenges which we are faced with. I don't think that this situation is going to change. Moreover, we find a similar debate in Europe with this very ambitious program of 750 billion. And we are probably going to see quite an interesting development that way in the United States themselves. So the future in the investment field now is much more than even before, despite the fact that all these trends had been visible, let us say, even a decade back already, more for bringing some private investments, for trying to somehow envisage such kind of investment stimulation, which will work, let us say, locally on very particular attractive programs, attractive elements of national designs. Well, these designs would be, of course, the result of national strategies, but they will be implemented with the emphasis on national investors playing the primary role, and some attractive stimuli evolved in the process. We, as I said, were very close to having some concrete vision for those priority sectors which have been mentioned, like energy, for instance. In September last year, Director General of State Corporation Rosatom Южная Азия, Shevlyakov, visited Kathmandu, and they had extensive discussions with the Energy Minister Barshaman Poon, They discussed the prospects of Russia's participation in Nepal's energy projects. Well, there was a round table with the participation of Nepal-Russia Trade and Industry Chamber and Nepal Academy of Science and Technology. We had a number of other interactions, and most importantly, we had, after gap of many years, the visit by Nepalese foreign minister, Mr. Gyawale, quite recently, and we thought that, and we had reasons to believe that given the clarity which emerged as a result of these discussions regarding priorities, we would be trying to substantively advance our cooperation in those priorities. But unfortunately, right now, as you all agree, well, there is no possibility even for continuing such kind of dialogue and diplomatic contacts. I'm sure that the last word has not been said on that, but I still believe that we'll have to proceed in a way which will advance the role of Russian private sector to the center stage. Unfortunately, our experience here has been not so much encouraging. We have only very few and very small individual investors in Nepal. And the reasons are quite obvious, because the situation, it is best known to our Nepalese friends themselves. The situation now in this line is such that it is extremely difficult, even for actors from the two neighbors, to come to Nepal and immediately start some new project without much ado and within some foreseeable time. It is a matter of Nepal reacting to this very sad and unfortunate reality. Well, I think that, for example, the helicopters which were mentioned by Ambassador Shrestha, and I think that this is a very good and promising field. And I remember how our helicopter, which came amidst immediate post-earthquake crisis in 2015, how it arrived to Kathmandu just in time, literally, to carry this relief to remote villages. I was on the first of such flights with the Prime Minister of the time and the Army Chief, and I remember the welcome extended to us, and I remember the kind of discussions we had. Both sides would like to very much take advantage of very good experience we have acquired in the process of preparing that deal at the time. Unfortunately, the realities on the ground are such that there are very many reasons which make even the implementation of the contract signed in December 2017 for the next two military and transport choppers, Mi-17B5. very difficult. Partly, it's the result of the situation in the sphere of financial deals implementation, resulting from those well-known notorious sanctions introduced by some outside but very powerful international actors. But there are also some technical reasons, and well, I look forward to our advance in this line, but I see some very big difficulties. Well, tourism, of course, is very attractive line of both investment and let us say in general advancement of our relations, but before we resolve the problem of direct link between Moscow and Kathmandu, which realistically is possible only if we also have some measure of Indian understanding and even probably better cooperation in this regard. I don't think that we'll have any real breakthrough in these terms. And as for Russia taking part in such ambitious projects, which of course are very exciting as ideas go, as for instance building some kind of highway through Tibet. Well, that requires investment on the scale which probably no country will be realistically capable of mobilizing in a matter of well, dozens of years. Unfortunately, these are some of the realities. I think there is no other way for Nepal rather than trying persistently make its presence noted and its voice heard in the international fora on the side of those who want to develop extensive infrastructure networks on the continent. I'm very happy that Nepal, during my ambassadorship in Kathmandu, back in 2015, became a dialogue partner of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But, well, maybe with some measure of impoliteness, inquire from my Nepalese colleagues, what has been the advantage over these 5 years for Nepal, which the country has really used due to this status. I can't recall any international or even national Nepalese coverage of fruitful participation of Nepal in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And that, despite the fact that there is already a project of Nepal upgrading its participation to observership. Now, just imagine if Nepal could use the opportunity which summits and different kinds of interactions internationally covered in the press provide to a country which wants to be seen and remembered as part of this developing Eurasian cooperation. I'm sure that this is one of these realistic ways which are underused by Nepal. Moreover, may I afford myself to suggest that an outsider may be even more surprised, given that through all these years we observe the very, should I say, unusual for Nepal of the last half a century, stability in the government. The government, which has a very big parliamentary majority, the government which presides over uniquely uniform ideologically cabinet of ministers, where one can hardly expect any opposition to developing such ambitious international projects. Well, I must say that there are more likely ways to advance the case of Nepal internationally and to have a measure of cooperation with Russia as a very understanding and reliable partner in Nepal, wherever we were represented in the same international bodies, down from United Nations to all other international engagements, like Interparliamentary Union, like some bodies which combine the functions of interaction between professionals and countries. I would say that this is a matter of some improved professionalism and activized role of national public opinion to advance and pressure for more active foreign policy targeted to implement Nepal's more active role in international and regional affairs. Well, as for the geopolitical background against which it all is happening, I wouldn't go as far as suggest that Russia somehow is too shy to plunge into South Asian context, but our vision is no secret to the outside world and our partners, and what is normally described as special Russian-Indian relationship is, after all, very much a bilateral project. We are not simply projecting our international vision into this bilateral relationship, but India equally is very active doing that. I would say that this is a very remarkable aspect of our relations with India. And Nepal could, without encountering any resistance, I would say, from on the part of anybody or any side, would might be also much more active in those international problems through interaction, resolving which such important international phenomena as, for example, Russia-India relationship are really emerging. It is another matter that, of course, at the moment, we can see a very non-constructive approach on the part of some non-regional forces which try to master new alliances based on a particular interventionist and non-cooperative visions of the world. But speaking in terms of post-COVID realities, somehow I don't think that the scope and the extent of ambition underlying such projects is supported by resource which the authors of such geopolitical designs might be having at their disposal immediately in the post-COVID world. Besides, there are going to be some challenges to such kind of vision, which would result from the realities of post-COVID world, which would require to reissue. Here I agree with the idea which was voiced by my colleagues, reissuing the globalization. I think it is the compulsion. We are not going to see the globalized world the way it was functioning, let us say, a couple of years before. But it remains an enigma which trends, and there are different trends we can watch now at this moment, would really prevail. To my mind, that suggests that everybody should review their national interest realistically and with a great measure of self-introspection, and probably cut down the options they should be using, the options of their choice. Having this realistic approach uppermost in their minds and start acting on that. To my mind, this approach at some stage would definitely help us also in our bilateral affairs. And just one minor remark, because it has been twice mentioned that Russia is working on these vaccine projects, and it may be very helpful if this is somehow also used in our bilateral relations. Well, not being an official figure and not having a mandate to make any statement on the subject, I may simply basing myself upon some experience and some dialogues I lately had in my present position. Well, I may assure you that, of course, when Russia really develops something positive and skillful in this regard, you may be sure that we'll do our utmost to make it a part of a great international cooperative project. Just look at the present controversy which United Kingdom has inadvertently started when some people in the Foreign Office there chose to suggest that Russian spies have tried to penetrate the secrets of this tremendously important work on the project of evolving some vaccine in the kingdom itself. From our side, immediately what followed, besides, of course, the repudiation of all these allegations, the press representative for the president of the nation said that, look, but AstraZeneca, which is the biggest gun, so to say, in the UK, working on the project, themselves already provided to us, due to our previous understanding and cooperation in the field, everything necessary to contribute to the mutual or international in its scope project of working on such vaccine. So our vision definitely is that we are doing it not only for ourselves, but for our friends also. It is one of those things which may contribute atmospherically to developing our relations. But I must confess, I don't think that it has a lot of let us say, commercial substance in that. Commercial advantage is in our hands, in the hands of our private sectors of the two countries. And we should work on it together. And I expect that the Nepalese side, especially the public, the private sector, would be stepping up their activity in projecting Nepal in every way possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Velичкин, for providing such a broad perspective on both the Russia-Nepal collaboration, Nepal's prospects and Nepal's activities within the SCO, and also the global situation and regional situation. And now I know, Mr. K.C., you have already described briefly the opportunities for Russia-Nepal collaboration in your first speech, but would you like to add something maybe?
Yeah, I think like after listening to both the ambassadors from both countries, I have very like less to say. But let me very succinctly put something or like re-emphasize what I have already said. I think while we are talking about the like cooperations, as ambassador and all of our distinguished panelists has highlighted, we need to look at the cooperations sector like education, energy, and technology. I think that are the foremost priority sector we need to take into account. Like at the meantime, like while we are talking about the promoting tourism, but we obviously know that this is really on easy time internationally, but prior to this COVID-19 also, like we don't have like direct flight from Kathmandu to Moscow, I guess, which was suspended from 2014 due to the reason of commercial viability. I think if we need to promote, people to people connection and tourism, so we have to, reestablish such direct connections, I would say. And I think there is also one question regarding SAC. If you want, then I can briefly touch upon that as well. Is that fine?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. I think like while talking about the South Asia, that we know it is unfortunately one of the most like interconnected region in the world with average like 5% of interregional trade among the country. The process, like the SAC process, has been stalled many times in the past, but lastly, from 2014, we hosted the SAC summit in Kathmandu, and it is supposed to like hosted by Pakistan and Islamabad in 2016. But prior to that, we have like unfortunate incident between India and Pakistan that we call the Uri attack, and the summit has cancelled from them. So I think we all know that the major issue that is acting as a major impediment to the success or like active investment of SAARC is the tensions between Pakistan and India. That is obvious, and like I guess if we have to like highlight some of the major achievement of SAARC, then I would say like the establishment of the South Asian University, and similarly the establishment of the like tuberculosis center and many others. But the main point is that we have like high ambitions that from the SAARC, but the result and outcome is not that much good, I would say. Talking about the like foreseeable future of SAARC, then I think it depends mainly upon India, and it has definitely like shifted its priority from like SAARC to BIMSTEC, another regional architecture in the region, which include like how the 5 other South Asian countries, and as well as it is also like sitting with its priority to be like sub-regional fora like DIN, which includes Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, and Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. So I think my sense is that though we have like we have been talking about the revitalization of SAARC and then its process and its active engagement in the regional architecture, but we must have to accept that in at least in the foreseeable future, it is not going to be as desired, I would say. So maybe like I like to stop here.
Thank you so much for answering the question on Russia-Nepal relations and also the question on SAARC. And now I give the floor to Professor Lунев for his brief remarks for the first question or these 2 questions, if you feel.
Well, thank you very much. But after brilliant speeches of 2 ambassadors, it's very difficult to add something about the future of Russian-Nepalese cooperation, especially in the economic sphere. The only thing I would like to add that now Nepal is in a wonderful situation just to continue on the policy of balancing between India and China and to receive many profits. I'll just recall you of Indian experience of the 1960s. During this decade, the Soviet Union and the Soviet bloc has contracted practically the heavy industry sector in India, and it was the same as high technology in present times. And during the same decade, the United States gave for free $10 billion to India, and if we take this purchasing capacity, it's around $300–400 billion in present. So, as Prithvi Narayan put it in Dibio Padesh, Nepal is like a yam between 2 boulders, but it is possible to find quite good ways out of it. And as for the question on SAARC, Dr. Shyam gave a brilliant answer, just several details. Russia would like to have the status of an observer at last at the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. It's a very positive step. And many experts, of course, even wonder about the feasibility of further separation of SAARC but this organization is very important for India, for example, because the absence of original organization will call into question the legitimacy of the status of regional power for India, for example. And SAARC gave a wonderful way for meetings and discussions, informal meetings. And it's a significant contribution of SAARC to the cause of peace, because the number of bilateral meetings of country leaders in some forums exceeded significantly the total number of high-level talks held in South Asia between forums. And just my last observation. Of course, my proposition about triangular activity in Nepal maybe is considered to be some kind of absurd. But if we speak about our conference, even an absurd idea shouldn't be dropped without any discussion. I was in Delhi in 1998 when Prime Minister Primakov suggested the idea of this thing. And it was really a shock, not only for Indians themselves, but for our diplomats in India who phoned me and asked what the idea is about. But now we see the creation of BRICS higher more than RIAC as an initial initiative. So maybe it's possible to find some ways to implement, maybe not many, but at least some things. And Nepal, in such case, will play a wonderful role because the major problem between China and India is the lack of confidence. And maybe Nepal will be able to make at least some kind of confidence between India and China. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lunev. I think we're now nearing the end of our discussion. We have I can say these are questions, more like comments from the YouTube chat. So first one sounds like, I think that with COVID-19, national economies in Russia and South Asia could turn inwards to try to mitigate the effects of the pandemic on domestic economies. And the second comment deals with Russia-Nepal cooperation, and it states that technical education could be a good road for Russia-Nepal cooperation after the pandemic passes. And in midterm, it could be useful for implementing other potential projects like infrastructure. And we also have one question, like even two questions. First one is addressed to our colleagues from Nepal, and the question deals with the population's attitude towards Russia. So what is the Russia's image on the people's level in Nepal? And the second question deals with also cooperation in education and culture, and what are the prospects of this kind of cooperation in Russia-Nepal relations. And having stated these comments and these questions, I think we could now give additional, I think, 1 or 2 minutes for each speakers to sum up the outcome of the whole discussion and also follow up on these questions and remarks that have been stated by the discussion. And I think we could start with Dr. Timofeyev again. You are muted. Could you please unmute yourself?
Thank you very much. Yeah, can you hear me? Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, moderator, for well, first of all, for such a vibrant event, and I'm grateful to all of the participants for their contributions. I personally learned a lot on the substance of Russia-Nepal relations and on the views of colleagues from Nepal, on the situation in South Asia. I share a lot of what was said, especially on the role of COVID-19 in international affairs in the region and in the development. I especially value the remarks by ambassadors, by your excellencies, on the humanitarian aspects of the Nepal's foreign policy and internal affairs. I trust that our seminar is the first in the line of the coming events. I do hope that we will continue our cooperation. And one of the formats we can propose for the future is, for instance, the exchange of written comments for the websites of our organizations to fix our ideas on paper, right? So it's very good that we have an exchange of opinions in such a roundtable, but the next step would be the fixation of some of the points on paper and publication of these points and papers on the websites of our organizations. Thank you. Тебя не слышно.
Thank you so much, Dr. Timofeyev. And now to Ambassador Shrestha.
Oh, very fruitful discussions we have. In short, I will like to mention 2 points. One, that from next year, we will have surplus power production, and transmission line towards India and Bangladesh is under construction. So Bangladesh is another market of Nepalese hydropower. So there is regional cooperation perspectives in power sectors, and Russia returned technicians very active in Nepal, and Russia have constructed Panuti hydropower project. So if there can be one institution to study hydropowers and its impact in economy, so Russian technical persons and Russia returned our students, Nepalese experts, they can collaborate. So that is one prospect I would like to know from my Russian friends about this. And at the same time, Cuba is one of the glorious example in health sector. So looking this pandemic, there can be a new area of cooperation between health sector experts and people of Nepal, and Russia can launch a regional center in Nepal to study more and serve during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And then I'm happy to give the floor for final remarks to Ambassador Velичkin.
Oh, thank you very much. When I was now listening to what my colleague and dear friend, Ambassador Hиранья Лал was saying, I thought, why not develop just as a wider initiative, and that is really what I think we can do, and there have been some attempts in the past to materialize this idea. Why not establish some kind of stable and institutionalized exchange between academies of science of the two countries? We have a number, they were identified in the past, a number of very interesting, very provocative fields in different branches of science, where we could come relatively fast to some publicly very attractive results, which could be easily made a sort of propaganda added value to the course of our relationship and result in something really substantive. We could even count the fallout, you know, even monetarily. Unfortunately, there has been some kind of slowdown in that. I don't know exactly why. Secondly, we have an important asset which was in passing mentioned in terms of our public bodies, public organizations like Mitrakunj, for example, and most of all Mitrakunj. I think this is something which needs to be always kept in mind. The work in this line should be continued. This is the background, the hope and belief which we must always have for the best future of our relations, and especially after this immediate wave of COVID worries somehow passes away. I mean, there are some symbols of the past which should be preserved. Some projects of the period which was mentioned by Dr. Lunev, for example, of that end of 50s and 60s, which are still there. The youth might be enlightened about them. There is emerging new symbol of that project in Lumbini of Buddhist shrine, which is being developed there now from the Russian side, from the side of some public bodies. In short, there are interesting things there. We should not forget them. We should build up on them. And I believe that the future of our relations is very bright.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your final remarks. And now I'm happy to give floor to the representative of other co-organizer, the Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, Mr. K.C. Please, the floor is yours for your final remarks.
Thank you very much. I think the discourse is really enriching yourself. I also benefited from the expert opinion from the upper side of the country. So I would say that there is one question you just asked. What is the perception about the Russia and Nepal? I think I would say it's quite good. In international relations, I think when there is a kind of little investment or then there are probability of the little problem and proximity and as the kind of sensitivity in the bilateral relations. But overall, I think there is very cordial relationship that both countries are enjoying from since decades, and I would expect and I would wish that the relationship will flourish in foreseeable future. And I think this sort of track to a dialogue also in many ways immensely supporting setting the bilateral relations between Nepal and Russia that can be mutually beneficial for the both countries. And once again, as Dr. Ivan was saying, definitely we can write a joint research paper or write in each other's platform about the Russia Nepal relationship. It is a continuous process. We don't need to we don't have to stop here. We need to continue in so many years to come with new changing dynamics and scenario and contribute to advance Nepal-Russia relations. So once again, as being part of organizing this virtual meeting, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to both the ambassador from Russia and Nepal and Professor Sergei. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. K.C. And now the floor for final remarks is to Dr. Sergei Lунев, if he's still with us, because I can't see him anymore.
Yes. I hope that everything is okay now. I can only agree with practically all suggestions made by my friends and colleagues. And it's absolutely important, in my opinion, to continue the contacts between Russia and Nepal in different spheres, and the continuation of such webinars is a great thing, especially in the conditions that just now we are able just to have these webinars. It would be extremely difficult to have joint conferences and seminars. Now it's much more easy job than it was before. And as for about questions, the question about the education ties, yes, am I right?
Yeah, there was a question about education and culture ties between Nepal and Russia.
Yes. In my opinion, it's necessary to begin the enrollment of Nepalese students in Russian universities. And as far as I understand, to this day, there is a very real appreciation within Nepal of the value of Russian higher education, particularly for medical and engineering professions. And higher education ties should be strengthened. They are rather weak, unfortunately, now. And it's also need to promote more vigorous cooperation between scientists. And it's possible to say that the present webinar is a kind of a really improving ties between researchers, diplomats, and teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lунев. And with that, I think we can conclude our seminar. And of course, I would like to thank, first of all, our co-host from Nepal, Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, for your initiative and eagerness, and of course, Mr. K.C. and all the staff of the institute that took part and helped us organize and put together such an interesting discussion. And our great gratitude goes to all our distinguished speakers that found an opportunity to speak at the webinar. Thank you so much, Ambassador Shrestha, Ambassador Velичkin, and Dr. Lунев for joining us today. And I hope we will have different opportunities to discuss Russia-Nepal relations and other interesting topics. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, thank you so much for the audience that followed us on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.